You're listening to Breaking the Bottle Legacy with Molly Watts, Episode 5. Hi, I'm Molly. After a lifetime living under the influence of family alcohol abuse, spending more than 30 years worrying about alcohol and my own drinking, believing I had an unbreakable daily drinking habit, I changed my relationship with alcohol forever. If you want to change your drinking habits, then Breaking the Bottle Legacy is for you. My goal is to help you create a peaceful relationship with alcohol, past, present, and future. Each week, I'll focus on real science and using your own brain to change your relationship with alcohol. Nothing has gone wrong. You're not broken. You're not sick. It's not your genes. And creating peace is possible. I'm here to help you do it. Let's start now. Well, hello and welcome back to Breaking the Bottle Legacy. I am your host, Molly Watts, coming to you from a kind of gray, but not too terrible January day here in Oregon. It's actually January 10th, and it is my 10th day of Dryuary for those of you that are following along. If you're not, I would love you to come to Facebook and find or search for Breaking the Bottle Legacy group, and you can journey along with me as I go through Dryuary. It's been great so far, and I would love to share that journey with you. Today on the podcast, I am super excited to be talking to my first actual interviews and an expert or somebody who is invested in helping people change their relationships with alcohol. His name is Kenneth Anderson, and he is the CEO and founder of HAMS. HAMS is a nonprofit lay-led support group for people who want to change their relationship with alcohol. It stands for Harm Reduction, Abstinence, and Moderation Support. So loved talking with Kenneth about the background, what journey led him here, and just learning more about HAMS. So here is my conversation with Kenneth Anderson. Hello, Kenneth. Thank you so much for joining me today and being on Breaking the Bottle Legacy. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Okay, thanks for having me here.
Absolutely. So I just gave a brief in the intro, just talked a little bit about who you are and just saying basically that you are the founder and CEO of HAMS, but I want to get into a little bit more about what HAMS is, and really let's start first at the beginning and your story, kind of how you got to even begin HAMS and where that journey started, and give me a little more of the backstory.
Well, I think it's interesting that your focus is adult children of alcoholics. And there's kind of this myth that, if people are brought up by abstainers, they will be abstainers. Mm-hmm. And it's totally false.
Right.
And the research doesn't bear that out either. There was a lot of research done on this. I think Cahalan and Room did research on this, it's kind of old. Nobody wants to touch this topic anymore.
No, I know.
But what they found was children of moderate drinkers were most likely to be moderate drinkers. They were the least likely to abstain and also the least likely to have problems with alcohol. Mm-hmm. So, modeling a sane, moderate lifestyle for your children seems to be a really good thing. Now, in my background, both my parents were religious teetotalers, and all four grandparents were also religious teetotalers who, of course, if you drink, you go to hell and burn in hell forever. Uh-huh. And all this really extreme religious stuff. Of course, if you believe in evolution, you also burn in hell forever. This extreme position. And that leads a lot of people to rebel because that's an extreme and unnatural position. Just another fact alongside all of this. Um, lifelong abstainers, people who never drink, are much more have much higher mortality rates
Mm-hmm.
than moderate drinkers or even relatively heavy drinkers.
Mm. Okay.
Uh, it seems connected with this uptight personality that is freaked out about everything. Um, but yeah, definitely the idea that having parents who abstain will lead to abstinence in children is just not necessarily true.
And sounds like for you personally was not true.
It was not true for me personally. No, I rebelled very strongly
Mm-hmm.
against all of these things that I was brought up with. And, well, wound up drinking a lot eventually,
Yeah.
enough to cause quite a few problems.
Do you consider yourself, were you ever physically dependent on alcohol? Did you cross that line, do you think? Or were you just, you know, was it impacting your life in any other ways or many other ways?
Oh, I definitely met the DSM-5 criteria for severe alcohol use disorder. Um, the the worst of all was when I went to AA
Yeah.
and drank more than I ever had before in my life. I wound up while I was in AA drinking 5 liters of whiskey in 5 days and
Ooh.
was going through such withdrawal. I was afraid of a heart attack or a stroke. I mean, the
Yeah.
pulse was crazy, heartbeat was irregular. I checked into detox, got them to bring me down on Valium so that I didn't, die.
Yeah.
And I decided that, I had to never go to AA again or it would kill me.
It so so that's an interesting, for some people who are listening to this, they believe that AA is, they we're taught, it's sort of ingrained in us from at least for those of us that grew up back in the 70s and 80s, that AA was synonymous with people that had a drinking problem. You went to AA to get help, right? And so for some people that are listening, they may not understand that it's truly not. The efficacy rate of AA has been shown time and time again to not be very to be very low for people. And I know your story obviously is that it actually propelled you to drink more while you were in that program.
Yeah, it's interesting. This morning, I wasn't even thinking about this podcast, but in a certain Facebook group, I posted a question. How many people here drank more after you went to AA than before?
Mm-hmm.
And I had like a dozen people say, oh, yeah, way more after I started AA. I drank way more.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not here to bash AA and say, don't go if you like it. If you like it,
Yeah.
go ahead and do it. I have friends that quit their drugs or alcohol with the 12-step programs. I have other friends that quit by joining the Hare Krishnas.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it. It's not my job to tell you don't do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. If you like AA, if it fits you, fine. Did not fit me. I thought the theology was horrible. I thought that saying that alcohol is powerful and human beings are powerless
Mm-hmm.
is ridiculous. The idea that human beings need to be rescued from an inanimate object by an all-powerful God is really bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
And then if this God is rescuing these alcoholics, why is he letting children die of cancer if he's an all-powerful God? The whole thing makes no sense to me, period. So definitely I was not comfortable there. And, my subconscious just kind of absorbed this whole message that alcohol is powerful and humans are powerless, and just left me completely out of control. And
Right.
as I told you, the result, so while I was in detox and saying, I am never going to AA again because it will kill me. I need to figure out something better. And that was pretty much the genesis of the harm reduction approach to alcohol.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I found I love. I found hams in my doing research for my own journey through changing my drinking habits, and also for researching for breaking the bottle legacy, because I as an adult child of an alcoholic and somebody that watched my own mother struggle for 40 plus years and eventually succumb, die of her an alcoholic binge. Um, and she went through 4 different recovery programs, all 12-step based, and clearly it never worked for her. Right? Her last attempt was a 9-month inpatient recovery program that was for the quote unquote reluctant to recover, and she drank 3 weeks after she came out. Clearly, no longer physically addicted, physically dependent on alcohol at that point, but she could not get her mind around she could never accept or never. I think she battled the ideas and the whole premise of the 12 steps the whole time. She could never buy into it all, and therefore never really ever got to the point where she believed that she had power over it as well, which is one of the reasons that I loved what I've learned about hams in all of my research. So let's talk about hams. And for everybody that is never heard about this program before, hams stands for
Harm reduction, abstinence, and moderation support.
Perfect.
So HAMS.
Yep, and everybody that follows along with hams is called a hamster, which I
Hamsters.
love. Yep. So
Yeah,
a
they
little bit
picked
of
that name. When we started the group, I said, what should we call ourselves? And somebody said, should we be hammers? Should we be hamsters? And somebody said, how about hamsters?
I love it. Yeah, it's a great
Yeah,
idea.
hamsters. Let's be hamsters.
And it makes everybody smile a little bit and realize that you can, not everything that, while it's a very serious subject, and we don't want to, because alcohol does have some high risk use problems, right? So we don't want to ever minimize that, but at the same time, we can approach it with an attitude of sometimes having a smile on our face. And I think there's actually, I know and I'm going to get through this a little bit later when we talk a little bit more about how to change your drinking, the book that you wrote for hams, and which is so full of so much great information. But one of the things that I think people get in their minds is that this journey has to be really hard, and that it's really a challenge for it. And it is a challenge, of course, for some people, but part of the reason that I think that it is, and this is one of the things that I believe, is that I held on to for so long, is that I told myself for so long that it was going to be hard to change. I really held on to that belief for so long. And once I kind of turned my head around on that and realized that I actually was in control, and I could choose what I was doing with my drinking, and that I could assess my own risk reward cost benefits analysis, that it changed a lot for me in terms of also then realizing that it wasn't quite as hard as I wanted to make it sound.
Yeah, I mean, people should realize that they are going to have to do a certain amount of hard work,
right,
in changing their behaviors. But also, as you said, the more you have a smile on your face, the easier it's going to be. So it's not like it's going to be this difficult, insurmountable Sisyphus pushing the rock up the hill and having it come back down for all eternity.
Right.
No. And the longer you establish your new habits, the longer they've been established, the easier they are to maintain.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
So it absolutely gets easier. Yeah, there'll be some struggles in the beginning and some rough times probably, but as I said, the longer you stick with your new habits, the easier they are to maintain. And of course, we support every goal that people choose, whether they want to quit completely, which about half of people with alcohol dependence, as defined by the DSM-4, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 4th edition. About half of people will find that quitting completely works best.
Mm-hmm.
And about half of people will find that controlled drinking works best.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't try to define for you what controlled drinking should look like. As in, say, oh, if you only have 2 drinks a day, you're okay, but if you have 3, it's horrible.
Right.
No, in our program, you get to choose what kind of drinking pattern you want, what kind of change you're ready to make. And we always say, if you decide that you want to stop drinking and driving, but still want to get drunk every day, that's a good improvement. We totally applaud that. You can't find any other program that will support that. But really, it's a huge improvement.
Right. I love that. One of the things that HAMS, one of your mantras, statements, whatever you want to call it, is better is better. And that whole idea, the whole notion of harm reduction. And let's talk about that notion of and why it's so important in treating, or I don't even like to say treating, but in how we evaluate people as they want to change their drinking habits. This is something that I think is super underserved for people understanding, because a lot of people still think that there's really only, there's only 2 things. There's either people that drink that can handle it and they drink successfully moderately, or they are, they have severe alcohol use disorder and they need recovery. And there's nothing in between. And the idea with harm reduction is that you yourself are the person that's evaluating what it means to find a safe level of drinking for yourself. And you have to look at it. And what I love about the HAMS steps for I think it's the first step, right? That is, or not.
We
step.
call them.
We don't call them steps. We call
them elements.
Elements, right? Because steps imply that you have to take them in order, and you have to do them one right after another, and you have to finish them all, right? And with HAMS, that's not the case. These elements are, you can apply what applies to you and helps you, or skip what doesn't help you, right?
Right. And we always say, if you do one of the elements and your problem is solved, you don't have to do any of the rest of them. Why would you?
Right. But number 1 is all about the cost benefit. I can't talk. Cost benefit analysis of your drinking. And I really love that. I think it's super important because it helps you also look at the idea that you probably have some benefits that you associate with drinking that you should take into account, right? When you're figuring out whatever it is, whatever your safe level or whatever your goal of drinking is going to be.
Yeah, the cost benefit analysis is a great tool. I didn't invent this. This is an old tool that's been around since the 60s and still currently in use. Very heavy use by therapists. They find it's a wonderful tool for all sorts of things, not just drinking or drug using. So it's very well accepted by the psychotherapeutic community. And it's just, basically make a list of the pros and cons of your current drinking habit and the pros and cons of the change you want to make. And it's really important to look at, both. In traditional treatment programs, they would just want you to say everything bad about alcohol and everything good about recovery.
Right.
And that leaves all the things that are good about alcohol in your subconscious, where they will jump out and bite you in the ass. I mean, it's a total failure. The research has shown, to do that one-sided thing. Whereas if you're balanced and you look, there are pluses of alcohol. I drink to relax. Okay. What other ways can I relax? And you can be prepared, if you know the pros as well as the cons. So that's why it's so important to do both.
And do you think that people, so what I find too is that people are sometimes suffering for a long period of time. For me, I know personally, I had a lot of, because I am an adult child of an alcoholic, I had a lot of anxiety and worry about my my drinking. Was constantly trying to figure out if what I was doing was, technically safe or not. Looking at all the research, was I considered a moderate drinker, heavy drinker, et cetera, et cetera. Trying to, uh, like I said, rationalize, I guess, what I was doing as opposed to simply just like this, sitting down and really being able to bring it into the logical side of my brain and realizing for me personally that the anxiety that I was causing myself from drinking was something that I could actually give up because, that I could actually not have to deal with anymore by simply figuring out my relationship with alcohol. So it, that was something again that I think that what I like about the HAMS method is that it supports people figuring out whatever relationship with alcohol they want to have, all the while talking about harm reduction. So for me, like I said, I used to think that I could handle more alcohol than I think I can psychologically. Now I realize that I'm better off. The less and less I drink, the better off I actually am. I have a lot less. I don't worry about things anymore like that because I don't have to. So,
yeah, the harm reduction aspect is so important. And as you said, it's often misunderstood. I mean, we've had this myth foisted upon us forever that, you're either an alcoholic or you're a normal person. There is no crossing of any lines. You're either in category X or you're category Y. One of the AA sayings is you can't be a little bit alcoholic any more than you can be a little bit pregnant. And those things are completely false.
Right. Yeah.
One of the most interesting things is, in 1980, the American Psychiatric Association threw out the term alcoholic entirely.
Yep.
They just got rid of it. They said this has so much cultural baggage attached to it, it's useless as a term. They said they needed new terminology, and they opted for alcohol abuse and alcohol dependence. And they set out very rigorous diagnostic criteria for these. This was the DSM-3. And then they went to the DSM-4 and modified these and still had very rigorous criteria. Okay, you have to meet so many of these criteria before you will qualify for alcohol dependence or alcohol abuse. Or if you qualify for one or the other or both, it's called alcohol use disorder. They used that term even then.
Yeah.
Now, the interesting thing is when they went into the DSM-5, they conducted a huge national survey of about 40,000 people. And they wanted to compare the criteria for alcohol use disorder from the DSM-4 to the DSM-5. So, do these two sets of criteria, do they identify the same set of people or different? How much alike are they? And they turned out to be totally different. There's about 43 million Americans that meet the criteria for DSM-4 alcohol use disorder that do not meet the criteria for DSM-5 alcohol use disorder. Which I like to always say that 43 million Americans were cured of alcoholism by the publication of a book. They no longer had it once the book was published.
Right.
It's a totally gray area. Alcohol related problems go from, very few where people don't have a diagnosable disorder to very many where they have a severe disorder. I mean, it's a continuum, and people don't progress necessarily from having a few problems to having many problems.
Right.
A lot of people start having a few problems, say, wow, this is no good, and they say, I'm not going to drink this way anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of people, get rid of their alcohol problems long before they hit a diagnostic category. People can change at any point
Yeah.
along the continuum as soon as they decide, I don't like this anymore. And, say, I'm going to make a determined effort. I'm going to make a plan to change this. And interestingly, over 90% of people with alcohol dependence as defined by the DSM-4 will recover
Mm-hmm.
eventually.
Yeah.
And about half by abstaining and about half by controlled drinking. But recovery is the norm.
Right. And I think that the reason that one of the reasons I like HAMS so much and why I'm dedicated to helping people change their relationship with alcohol as well is that there is such a large gray area of people who aren't being served by what they're doing right now with alcohol, and are at putting themselves at risk, putting themselves or simply, just like I was, have a lot of anxiety and worry needlessly over their drinking, not because they shouldn't be changing their relationship, but because they do not identify themselves. Like for me, myself, I would have never identified myself as someone with a severe, with DSM-5, severe alcohol use disorder, or quote unquote an alcoholic. I would have never sought help from AA. That would just never been something that was something I wanted to do or felt like would help me, having watched my mother never find success with it. And yet I endured for 30 plus years with a daily drinking habit that caused me a lot of anxiety that I couldn't seem to kick. I couldn't seem to break until, but what I want the message to be, and I know you say the same, is that it is possible. It was possible. I did do it. And even while I would say I was never physically dependent, I definitely had a psychological dependence on alcohol that I was able to change. And I believe that, just like you said, most people, whether it be by 90 whatever percent you just told me, most people will be able to find a solution with alcohol that works for them, whether it's a complete abstinence or finding an alcohol, the drinking level that is correct, that works for them. In terms of one of the things, again, I like about the HAMS program so much is it is very much about self-direction and moving at your own pace and not finding what works for you, not beating yourself up when things go awry. And I think that's important. One of the reasons that I think we struggle with the idea of never drinking again versus being able to moderate alcohol is that oftentimes when things go wrong, people see it as, oh, okay, well, I'm just somebody that's never going to be able to handle my alcohol once they've had an issue. What's your counsel for people that are in that area where they're trying to figure it out and they keep, quote unquote, drinking off plan or doing what they don't want to be doing?
Well, the first thing that comes to my mind when you were talking about that was people will say, see, what you're doing isn't working. You have to go to AA.
Right.
And then when you go to AA and fail, you say, it's your fault because you didn't work the program.
Right.
Instead of saying, oh, maybe AA didn't work for you. Maybe it's the wrong place.
Right.
So if the program's not AA, the program gets blamed. If the program is AA, the individual gets blamed. That's just bizarre.
Right.
AA doesn't work for most people. Most people don't want anything to do with it. And for those that go once and see it, most of them just never go back. They say, this is the weirdest religious cult I've ever seen in my life. I didn't want anything to do with this. Now, when people go off plan, Well, in our group, we encourage people to look at their successes. Um, for instance, a lot of people will want to give a 30-day abstinence period a try. An abstinence period is one of the 17 elements that you can choose from.
Mm-hmm.
And although we don't tell you how long to do it, we do say a lot of people like 30 days. You can pick a week if you want. Some people want to do 3 months. Pick however long you want to do. But a lot of people get together in the group and they do 30 days. There's a group doing dry January right now.
I'm there with them. I'm in dryuary myself for the first time ever. So go.
And what happens if you do 10 days and then you drink?
Yep.
Well, we're going to say, hey, celebrate those 10 days. You had 10 days of success and 1 day of non-success. So focus on that. Do you want to continue? You can start again tomorrow. Do you have to count your days consecutively? Or, do you have to do them all in a row? Or can you just count the total? Right. It's up to you, if you do 10 days, you drink once, do you start again from 0 or do you start again from 10 days? And it's up to you, however you want to add your numbers up. But we just want you to realize that, you had 10 days of success. Now you can try for another 10 days of success or another 20 days of success, whatever your goal is. So don't get too obsessed about slipping up just one time.
Yeah. And I think that's, the challenge for people. And one of the things that I see, and I'm fairly active in the HAMS Facebook group and watching people too, is that propensity to really beat yourself up and beat themselves when people drink off plan or fall off, a alcohol-free streak, is the propensity to put a lot of self-judgment on that and really get down. And of course, the problem with that whole idea is that when you feel really bad, what do you tend to do? You want to stop feeling bad. And for people that have developed a psychological relationship with alcohol, they tend to then want to drink when they feel really bad. That whole idea of emotional buffering. And so we really have to, that's again, one of the reasons I enjoy the HAMS mantra so much, and all of the ideas surrounding it, is that you guys, there is no element of recrimination or, you've done poorly, it's bad, you have to start again or whatever. It's all about praising the success and trying to encourage at least some evaluation of your progress. I know that's another one of the elements, is really being able to look at that when you do step off, figuring out the why behind it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the late Dr. Alan Marlatt, who's one of our supporters, did a lot of research on this, and he found that the more people beat themselves up after a slip, the worse the slip got, the bigger the relapse.
Right.
So, he taught people, to forgive themselves immediately and start over immediately. No self-recriminations. Okay, you made a slip. And having one drink doesn't mean that you have to have 50 drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it doesn't, drinking 1 day doesn't mean you have to drink 100 days. The quicker people can forgive themselves and say, oops, messed up. Okay, let's get going again. The better they do.
The one thing that I think is interesting too, and I sometimes when I'm seeing people, and yes, I totally understand the supportive aspect of HAMS, which is why one of the reasons that I really enjoy it and think it's so great. I think people do tend to want to get, there is an element of HAMS. You're not going to change your drinking without working on it. That's the one thing that I think that you have to understand is you coming in and if you're continually not striving to get better, you won't get better. I mean, that's just, there is no change without you actually working on it. Even just listening to all the elements, doing, better is better, but you have to actually make some plans to get better or you won't. That's
It's true, but then we also recognize that every step, no matter how small,
right,
is an improvement. And go back to the other example. If you want to quit drinking and driving, but not change the amount you drink, that's good too.
Right.
So
Yeah.
a lot of changes start from really small ones. And
Absolutely. Yeah.
of course, if your goal is to be a moderate drinker of no more than 3 drinks in a day, and you don't make any effort to come down from 20 drinks in a day, well, you're not going to get there.
Right. And that's why the elements are there, and the drink trackers and that kind of, that whole idea. One of the things that I also really appreciate about HAMS is the halt bad drinking, that the emotional, and I was talking about that a little bit just a minute ago, the emotional buffering. One of the reasons that a lot of people tend to, use alcohol is, and one of the things that I really found for myself was the trying to, which is counterintuitive now to me, what's funny is that I drank to relieve the anxiety that I caused myself by drinking, which then I drank to, it's a vicious cycle. But the halt bad drinking stands for try to avoid alcohol if you are hungry, alone, angry, lonely, tired, bored, anxious, or depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's from the book How to Change Your Drinking and A Harm Reduction Guide to Alcohol. But do you find that is that, I don't know, in the research that you did for your book, was that something that and I know that the halt came from, I think, from AA, and then we added bad, but it's the same theory in terms of just if you're trying to change your drinking, avoiding alcohol when you are in those negative emotional states, because it really doesn't help.
It's a little bit of an oversimplification.
Okay, go for it. Tell me why.
Well, for me personally, that was the first change I made. That was my first small change. Mm-hmm. Was I'm not going to drink when I'm angry or depressed because it makes it worse. I'm only going to drink when I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was good for me.
Yeah.
Not good for everybody. Some people really do rely on alcohol as their emotional coping mechanism, and they're not ready to make that move right away. Maybe they will eventually. Pat Denning talked about women in particular using alcohol as a type of antidepressant. Some people do use it to deal with their negative emotions. So, you can't make a sweeping statement that everybody has to do it this way. Mm-hmm. And you can't just take away somebody's coping mechanism and leave nothing in its place.
Sure. Of course. Yeah. And I think for me personally, what I believe is that we have the ability, we need an education on how to change our coping mechanisms and I know in the book you talk a lot about, or you've got so much information in How to Change Your Drinking, A Harm Reduction Guide to Alcohol. I'm going to link it in the show notes. People need to go pick this book up because it's just chock full of not only strategies, but research and information, and really just a lot of data for people. In my estimation, the way that we really, the most successful way to change your drinking, your relationship with alcohol, is if you get a lot of information. You get all the data, right? You see both sides of the equation, and this book really helped me to do that as well. And in it, you talked about tools of cognitive behavioral therapy, and now I'm not going to be able to remember the other.
Dialectical behavioral therapy?
Yeah, potentially, yes, EBT. but for me, I know that's been a big part of my process, is learning that I can manage my own thoughts and emotions and have that ability to cope myself, and want to be able to use that power of my own brain to and realize it. And I think that other adult children of alcoholics, we grew up telling ourselves stories and learning things from our alcoholic parents that we've just kind of, they've ran in the background of our lives for so long, that until you take a step back and really understand what's driving you to what the beliefs are that you have, and how you don't have to just, you don't have to keep on believing them. You can literally decide to change how you see things and view things, and becoming your own best coping mechanism is possible, in my opinion, for people, that you can use your own brain to overcome some of these thoughts that you've had or beliefs that you've held on to for so long.
Absolutely. Human beings are powerful.
Yeah.
Your
Yeah.
brain is the only power you have, and it's not your enemy.
Right.
Which, I mean, that's what the traditional rehabs teach you, is that your brain is your enemy. No, your brain is not your enemy. Your
No.
brain is your best friend. Your brain is the only thing that's going to get you out of this. So
Yeah.
you have to become the master of your own mind.
Right.
And there are various ways to do that. Um, basically, I think they basically break down into two ways. And one is Stoicism, and
Yep.
one is Buddhism.
Yep.
These are the two paths that go back thousands of years of mental control. Stoicism developed by the Greeks and Romans, and Buddhism originating in India and then spreading other places in Asia. And basically, I think one of the most useful things I did was reading the handbook of I always pronounce the name wrong. Epictetus, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah. I saw that. I actually was just looking that up from the book. So I'm eager to actually look at that too. You read that it's not that long, like 46 something pages like that, but it's
Yeah,
I think you used the word pithy. It's kind of pithy.
it's very pithy. I think it's, if I remember, it's 46 chapters, and each chapter is like 1 to 2 paragraphs. So I would read one per day,
Yeah.
because that's enough to digest. Yeah.
But yeah,
So
these
that's
are, I
something you
mean,
sit down and read through all at once and
right.
absorb. But,
Right.
reading one per day and going through that, I found that just a tremendously useful exercise. Um, of course, if you prefer a book that was published last year instead of one that was published 2,000 years ago, that's good too, because there's a lot of good current literature written too. But it stems right directly from Epictetus. If you read Albert Ellis, um, who invented rational emotive therapy, that's
Hmm.
the father of cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, yeah, he says right out, yeah, I got all this stuff from the Greeks and Romans.
What's really funny about that is that I feel like that is kind of this cognitive behavioral therapy and rational emotional emotive therapy. I feel like that stuff is so largely ignored in our upbringing and schooling. And it's really like the key to life. I mean, honestly, if you figure out how to manage to manage your mind, whether it's drinking or any other habit that doesn't serve you, you're going to be far better off once you get the handles of, in my opinion, either, just like you said, either Buddhism or cognitive behavioral therapy, rational emotive therapy. Those things really help you with just about anything that you're trying to accomplish in your life.
Hmm. Yeah, me being a very rationalistic type person, a very head person, I like the Stoic perspective
Yeah, me too.
better.
Yeah. I'm,
That comes more natural to me. But a lot of people like more of the dialectical behavioral therapy, which is a Buddhist influenced approach, and that works great for them. There's a lot of similarities between the two as
yeah.
well.
Yeah. For sure. And it's, just like you said, it's about finding whatever's going to help you support your own goals. But I think that for me, like I said, for my journey, that was definitely a big part of it, was understanding. And I didn't know about it prior to working on all of this. And so, which is what's amazing to me, is that we spend so little time. I think our kids could really benefit from understanding a little bit more about those types of theories as they're growing up. So the two books that you have written, and the one book that we've been talking about, How to Change Your Drinking, and then also a newer book that you've just recently co-edited, Better is Better, Stories of Alcohol Harm Reduction. They're both available for sale through the HAMS website.
Yeah, that will link you to Amazon. It's we sell them through Amazon, not directly. I don't want to get involved with wrapping packages and shipping them out and all that stuff. Amazon is professional at that, so they take care of all that stuff. But yeah, we publish them through Amazon, and we prefer that you buy them through Amazon because we get a bigger royalty, and that's what supports the organization, which is a 501c3 nonprofit.
Awesome. Yeah. And so I'm going to link both. I'm going to link to HAMS, obviously, in the show notes, to then both of these books as well in the show notes. They'll take you directly to the Amazon link. And one more time, HAMS is a peer-led, free of charge support and informational group for anyone who wants to change their drinking habits for the better.
And before we leave, I should say the second book, the Better is Better book, it's a 99-cent Kindle ebook, so it's really affordable. It's not long. It's 50-some pages, I believe. So it's only 99 cents. It's the book of stories, and I have to say that April Smith, my co-author, is the one that actually collected all the stories, edited all the stories.
Awesome.
I kind of wrote an intro and put it in the final form. So I got to give credit to the person that did most of the work. Yeah.
Perfect. Wonderful. And April's also a part of HAMS, so that's wonderful, and HAMS for Women. So that's wonderful. And, everybody likes to hear success stories. And I think that's Better is Better is just a great way of helping other people see that this is possible. And some of these stories are pretty, people had some pretty severe use, and were able to come back, to create the relationship with alcohol they want. And for me, I know that's ultimately my goal, is to help people understand that they have that power, they can do it. And HAMS is just one resource that is, for me, I find to be very non-judgmental, very supportive of. What I love is the support of different goals. And so I really encourage everybody to go check it out and learn more about harm reduction, abstinence, and moderation support.
Okay.
Perfect. So, Kenneth, I really appreciate you coming on, and I am excited to share this with people. They'll be interested in learning more about your history and founding of this great nonprofit, and also to explore more. Folks, if you have not picked up How to Change Your Drinking with this book, the first book written by Kenneth, you really should, because it is really, there's just so much information in it, and it really can help you in terms of figuring out your strategies, your goals, and how to create the kind of relationship with alcohol you want.
Okay. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Kenneth, I appreciate it so much, and I will see you on the Facebook group.
Okay.
Thanks. Thank you for listening to Breaking the Bottle Legacy. This podcast is dedicated to helping you change your drinking habits and to create a peaceful relationship with alcohol. Take something that you learned in today's episode and apply it to your life this week. Transformation is possible. You have the power to change your relationship with alcohol now. For more information, please visit me at www.mollywatts.com.